Basic Appraisal Principles, page 442. Actually, I already read this page. Let me go to another one. There we go. Page 444. For example, under the principle of conformity, a house that cost $450,000 to build, but that is located in a neighborhood of homes ranging in value from $200,000 to $250,000, does not have the same value it would have if it had been built in a neighborhood of $400,000 to $500,000 homes. Jason owns a 2,000 square foot single family residential property located on a busy road and adjacent a small shopping center. Jason's home was built 10 years before the arrival of the retail shopping. Jason is now frustrated that the value of his home as a residential property has diminished. Under the principle of conformity, the property would have a higher value if it were located in a neighborhood of similar single-family use properties. The existing location of Jason's home would likely reach its maximum value if its use were changed to conform to the surrounding properties. For instance, change zoning to commercial or retail. Properties in a market will conform to one another for different reasons, such as economics or shared preferences for certain types of housing designs or amenities. The government plays a role in conformity through the enforcement of regulations such as zoning and building codes. Private organizations such as home owners associations can also influence conformity based on their rules and restrictions. Buyers can choose to invest in the market that suits their preferences and based on their effective purchasing power. For example, a buyer who owns a horse will likely buy into a market that has a property with housing for the horse, such as an equestrian community. Someone who prefers golf is likely to look for a neighborhood built on a golf course. A buyer who has small children and wants to live close to the school might look for a neighborhood with other small children that will attend the same schools. A buyer who is retired might look for a senior living community. A buyer who enjoys outdoor water activities might look for a home at a lake community. A buyer looking for a private gated community with rules that will guarantee a certain level of maintenance and specific architectural details will likely find a gated community with homeowners association rules and regulations that meets their specifications. In each of these examples, buyers look for neighborhoods with properties that will conform to their own wants and needs as well as their effective purchasing power. These neighborhoods were designed and built based on the local zoning restrictions. Some of the neighborhoods are further regulated by their home owners associations. Page 445. 4 stages of market life cycle. Related to the principle of change is the theory that property and neighborhoods or markets have a 4-phase life cycle. These are the 4 stages of a market. Number 1, growth. Number 2, stability. Number 3, decline. And number 4, revitalization/gentrification. Growth, also called development, is the first stage of the cycle. This is when new properties are being constructed and continue to be constructed over time. This creates a neighborhood of new housing with new owners arriving frequently. The next stage, stability, occurs when land is no longer available in the neighborhood to develop. In this state, there is a period of equilibrium when the neighborhood undergoes relatively little change and home ownership is relatively consistent. As the neighborhood ages, it may enter the stage of decline. During this period, there may be turnover in ownership of the properties, and maintenance of the condition of the properties will deteriorate. The value of these properties will drop, and they will attract those with a lower effective purchasing power. People looking for the least expensive housing. Because of the lack of funds, the properties will continue to deteriorate. It is at this point when the property's present economic usefulness is near an end and constant upkeep is necessary. Revitalization is a period of renewal when the property is reborn, usually with a different highest and best use. One way in which this occurs is through gentrification, when middle and upper income people purchase properties to renovate or rehabilitate them. For example, someone may convert apartment buildings into condominiums or single-family homes into duplexes. Another factor that may influence revitalization is the availability of financing for rehabilitation projects. Financing that is readily available can create an influx in renovations and increase the pace at which a neighborhood is revitalized. One negative result of revitalization and gentrification is the displacement of tenants who cannot afford the rehabilitated housing. These tenants are then forced to relocate to another neighborhood that most likely is in the declining phase, and the cycle continues. Keep in mind, however, that not all neighborhoods necessarily make it to the revitalization stage. And if a neighborhood does not revitalize, it may do so with a new dominant land use. Principle of externalities. The principle of externalities states that a property's value is affected either positively or negatively by influences outside of the property. These influences can result from circumstances such as an individual's behavior, government's imposed restrictions, economic conditions, use of neighboring properties, and social attitudes. Typically, a negative externality occurs when property owners are inconvenienced by the actions of others.